So in this video, we're going to take a look at the season of autumn from the perspective of the Chinese philosophy of the five elements. And hopefully you'll be able to more deeply understand how this season relates to the various organ systems in your body, how it relates to even emotional aspects. And then I'm also going to share with you some things which you can do to really harmonize with this season and really just kind of flow with what the season is all about and what it's, basically accomplishing in a bigger cosmic sense. I'm also going to share with you some things that I've been practicing to really, do exactly what I'm, just talking about. So if all of that sounds kind of weird, like harmonizing with cosmic energy and all of these things, I want to give you first a couple of illustrations to really help you see exactly what I'm talking about. First would be like swimming with the current in a river. Because, obviously you can swim against the current, but it's going to take a lot more time and energy and effort to actually do that. But you can just harmonize with it and go with what it's already trying to do, and everything will be a lot easier and everyone wins, essentially. Second example, second illustration would be sailing, with the wind or sailing against the wind. So both, are possible, probably, but one is going to be quite a bit easier and quite a bit more skillful than the other. So hopefully that sort of grounds and makes what we're going to talk about in this video a little more practical and sort of like, nitty-gritty. Also, before we start, I want to mention that if the camera angle is weird, it's because I'm on a big iMac and the camera is at the top. And if I look at the camera the whole time like this, I can't see my outline, so I might forget what I'm talking about. So that's why. So again, the season of fall is associated with the element of metal in Chinese medicine. And the element of metal is kind of regarded as one of the more sort of spiritual elements. Because we think of metal, we think of like cars or like a hammer. Well, they sort of had a lot different understanding, and a good way to think about it and illustrate it as sort of seeing the metal element as the meeting place of heaven and earth. Because metals come down from the cosmos, crash into the planet, then we go and we dig them out of the earth, and there's that. And if you think, that's kind of weird, doesn't make any sense, the metal element is associated with the element, or with the organs of the lungs. So if you think about it, where does heaven and earth meet in your body? Right in your lungs. By heaven, we obviously mean the air, what's above the positive versus the negative, etc. So we can see that quite crystal clear. And the element of metal is associated with not only the lungs, but also the large intestine in the skin. So by looking at the function of the lungs, we can understand the energy of what's going on in the external world. So what I mean by this, let's look at what do the lungs do? We breathe in air, and we exhale. So what's really happening there is that we're inhaling nutrients, we're inhaling nourishment into our body, and we're exhaling and eliminating toxins or things that are not useful to us. Let's look at what the large intestine does. Similar process. It's the last place in our body where we're absorbing nutrients and then eliminating what is not useful, eliminating waste. Skin has a very similar effect as well, because people think of the skin as just the skin, but in reality it's a huge organ of elimination as well as digestion, which is why you can put things on your skin and you eat them. So in case this is news to you, anything that does go on your skin, you're literally eating. It's going into your bloodstream. So if you're putting a bunch of junk on your skin, probably want to think, would you eat that? Would you take this and dump it in your mouth? If not, then you probably shouldn't put it on your skin, because that's exactly what's happening when you do that. So again, that's kind of the energy of fall. And you think, maybe that doesn't make sense. Well, look at what's happening. Things are falling off of trees. Things are dying and falling down and going back into the earth. The waste is being turned into nourishment for the next year, because those leaves are going to fall down and create soil, which is then going to nourish the tree, which is then going to produce new leaves, which is then just going to repeat that cycle, which is a very similar process to breathing. So that's sort of the energy of the autumn and fall, explained in a couple of different ways, which I hopefully you can understand. So again, just to recap, in case it wasn't crystal clear enough, the season is really about eliminating what's not useful, sifting through and taking in what is useful. So, people might go through sort of upheavals, emotional detoxes or emotional things at this time of year. Perfectly normal, perfectly natural. So, what emotions affect the metal element in the lungs? Would be emotions of sadness, melancholy, and grief, which a lot of people tend to feel this time of year. People get sort of a little bit more depressed, especially as we get closer to winter, but especially starting in this time of year. And then also since, we're talking about the lungs, we're talking about our what's called wei qi, or our protective energy, or our immune system. And you think, when do people typically get sick the most? This time of year, coincidentally enough. Which, coincidentally enough, if they have weak lungs or weak wei qi, when's it going to happen? Probably this time of year. So hopefully from those examples you can see how it all sort of fits together and how the internal world is not necessarily so different from the external world. So now that we've explained that, what are some herbs that we can take right now this time of year to really maximize and harmonize our efforts? First and foremost would be the immune tonics, the immune mushrooms, reishi, cordyceps, chaga. Also herbs like astragalus or schizandra or gynostemma. Those will all be great because they nourish the lung energy as well as our immune system and all of those things. So if we don't want to get sick, we don't want to get bogged down with all of that, we want to stay adaptive and stay smooth and flowing, those are great herbs to take. Now, what kind of things have I been doing to sort of go with this season or this element of like kind of eliminating old stuff and transforming it into something useful and extracting the nourishment, extracting the lesson, and letting it go? So basically, I've been meditating, no surprise. But what I've been doing is sort of the opposite of what most people do, which is purposefully digging up junk in my body, in my emotional body, that is not very pleasant. So negative experiences, negative emotions, negative beliefs, all of it, just digging it up and processing it and letting it go. And really digging it out of the liver. Because you think, well, what does the liver have to do with it? Well, the liver sort of stores a lot of junk, more or less, and filters a lot of things, emotional, physical, etc. But also, in the 5-element system, metal cuts wood, or metal controls wood, which wood being the liver. It's this time of metal, which is the lungs, of processing and letting things go with that, strengthen that, and then go for the liver and get all of the junk out. So that's really what I've been focusing on is, most people try to meditate and they're like, oh, I am abundant, I am one with the universe, I am a loving person. They usually just want to feel great. I've been sort of doing the opposite. I'm saying, okay, what kind of things can I do that makes me feel bad? Like what have I been ignoring or putting away for however many years that makes me feel terrible? So how that really changes and transforms things is by still following the 5 elements, is that the liver, or the wood, nourishes or generates the fire, which fire is the heart. Think about it, wood generates fire, it's kind of obvious. So by opening up things in the wood and by allowing the lungs to control the wood, it's then affecting the heart and opening the heart and making more space and more room for the heart energy. So that's why I've been doing it, and that's why it's good sometimes to go through the trash, sort it all out, process it, and then let it go. So hopefully in all of that sort of roundabout way, I've been able to explain and illustrate the energy of the season, the energy of the metal element.